The ballroom shimmered with lights, laughter, and expensive suits. I stood beside my wife, Victoria, smiling as everyone applauded her success. Watching her accept the award made my chest swell with pride. She squeezed my hand. "We did it!" I smiled. "No, you did it." Victoria laughed softly. "Don't start that again. You know none of this would have happened without you. I was just behind the curtain. And you were the reason the curtain stayed up." People gathered around us with congratulations. Glasses clinked. Cameras flashed. Investors praised Victoria for building Hayes Technologies into a billion-dollar company in only 6 years. One executive raised his drink. "To Victoria Hayes." Everyone cheered. I whispered, "Enjoy this moment." She looked into my eyes. "I will, because you're standing beside me." Those words became the last happy memory I would have. A loud voice interrupted the celebration. "Mr. Ethan Carter?" I turned around. 4 police officers were walking toward me. The room fell silent. One officer stepped forward. "I'm Detective Olivia Reed." I frowned. There must be some mistake. She held up a document. "Ethan Carter, you're under arrest for corporate fraud, embezzlement, and leaking confidential company information." I actually laughed. "What?" She didn't smile. "Please place your hands where I can see them." I looked at Victoria. "Tell them this is insane." She stared at the papers without speaking. "Victoria," she slowly looked up. I saw the evidence." I blinked. "What evidence?" "The missing money." "I didn't touch a dollar. The files came from your computer. They were planted." Ryan Brooks stepped forward from the crowd. He sighed dramatically. "Ethan, I never thought you'd do something like this." I glared at him. "You should stay out of this." "I'm only trying to help." "Help?" I snapped. "You came back 3 months ago, and suddenly millions disappear." His face tightened for only a second before another sad expression appeared. "Victoria," he's under pressure. "Don't make this harder." I pointed at him. "He's lying." Victoria whispered, "Please stop." "No." "Ethan." "No, look at me." She finally did. "You know me better than anyone." Tears filled her eyes. "I thought I did." Her answer hurt more than every accusation. Detective Olivia stepped closer. "Sir, turn around." "I won't run." I said turn around. I slowly faced away. Cold metal cuffs locked around my wrists. The clicking sound echoed inside my head. People pulled out their phones. Some whispered. Others stared. One investor muttered, "I knew something felt strange." Another answered, "Poor Victoria." "Poor Victoria?" I wanted to scream. Instead, I looked back at my wife. "Please." She remained silent. "I've spent years helping you." Silence. "I believed in you before anyone else." "Nothing. I love you." She closed her eyes. Ryan gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "I'll take care of everything." I wanted to punch him. Instead, 2 officers pushed me toward the exit. As the ballroom doors opened, camera flashes exploded outside. Reporters shouted, "Ethan, did you steal company money? Did you betray your wife? Why did you leak trade secrets?" I didn't do anything. Nobody listened. The police car door slammed behind me. Through the window, I saw Victoria standing beside Ryan. She never looked my way. Days later, I stood inside a courtroom, wearing a prison uniform instead of my favorite suit. My lawyer whispered, "The evidence is overwhelming. It isn't real." "I know what you're saying." "Then fight." "I'm trying." The prosecutor displayed bank records, emails, and security logs. Every piece pointed toward me. Every piece was fake. Detective Olivia testified. The investigation found financial transfers linked to the defendant. My lawyer questioned her. Could the records have been altered? We found no proof of tampering. My hopes slipped away. Then Victoria entered the witness stand. I held my breath. She looked exhausted. The prosecutor asked, "Do you recognize these company records?" "Yes." "Who had access?" "My husband." I whispered, "Victoria." She didn't react. "Did you trust him completely?" "I did." "And now?" A painful silence followed. Finally, she answered, "I don't anymore." My heart shattered. I wanted her to look at me just once. She never did. Hours later, the judge returned. This court finds Ethan Carter guilty on all charges. Everything became quiet. You are sentenced to 8 years in prison. 8 years. The words echoed endlessly. The bailiff pulled me toward the exit. I looked back one final time. Victoria. She stood frozen. Please tell me you know I'm innocent. She slowly turned away without saying a single word. At that moment, I realized the handcuffs weren't the worst part. Losing the woman I loved was. The prison gates slammed shut behind me with a heavy crash that echoed through my chest. It felt like the sound of my old life disappearing forever. The guard shoved me forward. Keep moving. I didn't answer. Another guard handed me a gray uniform. Change. Cell block C. I stared at the rough fabric in my hands. So this is my life now. I whispered. The first night was the longest night I had ever lived. I lay on the hard bed and stared at the cracked ceiling. Victoria's voice kept replaying inside my head. Asterisk, I don't anymore. Asterisk, those 3 words hurt more than the judge's sentence. Every morning, I woke hoping it had all been a nightmare. Every morning the prison walls reminded me it wasn't. The other inmates noticed me quickly. One afternoon, while I carried my lunch tray, a tall prisoner blocked my path. You're the rich businessman. I stayed quiet. He smirked. Thought prison would be easier than your office? His friends laughed. I'm not looking for trouble, I said. Too bad. He shoved my shoulder. My tray crashed onto the floor. More laughter filled the room. I bent down to pick it up. A calm voice spoke behind them. That's enough. The room became strangely quiet. An older man with gray hair stepped forward. He looked ordinary, but everyone moved aside. The bully frowned. This doesn't concern you, old man. It does now. The younger inmate looked around before backing away. Forget him. Within seconds, they walked off. I looked at the older prisoner. Thank you. He nodded. My name is Daniel. I'm Ethan. I know who you are. You do. Your case was on every television. You think I'm guilty? He looked directly into my eyes. No. I blinked. Why? Because guilty people usually spend their first week blaming everyone else. And me, you keep blaming yourself. His words caught me by surprise. Later that evening, he sat beside me in the yard. What did you do before prison? I asked. I was an attorney. I stared. A lawyer? For 28 years. What happened? I trusted the wrong business partner. I laughed bitterly. Sounds familiar. He smiled. That's why I spoke to you. Over the following weeks, we talked almost every day. One morning he asked, Do you hate your wife? I don't know. You should. I can't. Good. I frowned. Good. Hate is expensive. I lost everything. You lose even more if hate becomes your only purpose. I stayed silent. Daniel picked up a small stone. What happens if I throw this into the lake? It sinks. And the water? It settles. Exactly. He tossed a stone. The wise man waits until the water becomes clear before making his next move. I watched the ripples spread across the surface. I don't want revenge anymore. You do. I looked at him. You simply haven't admitted it. He smiled gently. The question isn't whether you want revenge. It's how you'll achieve it. Weeks turned into months. Instead of teaching me how to fight, Daniel taught me patience. He gave me old law books from the prison library. Read. I studied finance, not law. You'll study both. He taught me how evidence worked, how lies were built, how lies eventually collapsed. Truth is slow, he said, but it keeps walking. One visiting day, a guard called my name. Carter, visitor. I walked into the room. My younger sister Emma stood waiting. The moment she saw me, tears filled her eyes. She hugged me tightly. I'm so sorry. It's okay. No, it isn't. She stepped back. You've lost weight. The food isn't exactly wonderful. She managed a small laugh. I missed hearing your jokes. I almost forgot how to make them. She reached into her bag before remembering the rules. I brought photos. The guard shook his head. Leave them on the table. Emma nodded. She pushed them toward me. Our childhood. Our parents. My wedding. I couldn't stop staring. Victoria hasn't visited, Emma said quietly. I know. I went to see her. I looked up. You did. She refused to talk about your case. What did she say? She kept saying the evidence was clear. I closed my eyes. Emma grabbed my hand across the table. I don't believe it. You should move on. I won't. Emma. No. Her voice became firm. I know my brother. Everyone else thinks differently. I don't care. She squeezed my hand harder. I'll find the truth. It may take years. Then I'll spend years looking. I felt tears burning my eyes. Why? Because you would have done the same for me. The guard announced the visit was over. Emma stood. I'll come back. You don't have to. I know. She smiled through her tears. But I will. Months continued passing. Daniel watched me become calmer. You're changing, he said. I don't feel stronger. Strength rarely feels strong. Meanwhile, Emma wrote letters describing small clues she kept discovering. Missing files. Strange financial decisions. Ryan appearing in every important company meeting. None of it proved my innocence, but together the pieces formed a picture that refused to leave my mind. She ended every letter the same way. Asterisk, don't give up. Asterisk, one rainy afternoon, Daniel folded his newspaper and looked at me. Ryan Brooks was promoted again. I took the paper. Victoria stood beside Ryan in a company photograph. Both of them smiled for the cameras. I stared at the picture for a long time. Daniel quietly asked, Does that break your heart? I folded the newspaper. No. He raised an eyebrow. It hardens it. For the first time since entering prison, I realized something important. Prison had taken my freedom. But if I wasn't careful, bitterness would steal the rest of me. 5 years passed slower than I ever imagined. Every morning began with the same prison whistle. Every evening ended behind the same steel bars. But I was no longer the broken man who had entered this place. Daniel often smiled at me. You finally stopped counting days. I started counting opportunities instead. Good. Because one day I'll walk out of here. And what will you do first? I thought for a moment. I'll breathe. He laughed quietly. That's a better answer than revenge. I smiled. I'm learning. Our routine rarely changed. We exercised. We read. We debated old court cases. Sometimes Daniel challenged me. If you faced Ryan today, what would you do? I'd ask him one question. What question? Was it worth destroying so many lives? And if he laughed, I'd still walk away. Daniel nodded with satisfaction. Now you're dangerous. Because I can fight. No, because you can choose not to. A week later, I received another visit from Emma. She looked older than I remembered. The years had changed both of us. She smiled. You look healthier. I actually feel healthier. I'm proud of you. We sat across from each other. She leaned closer. I have news. My heart raced. What happened? Victoria's company is losing money. I frowned. How much? Milio. How? Nobody knows. I stayed silent. Emma continued. Ryan keeps blaming competitors. Does Victoria believe him? I think she wants to. Wants to. It's easier than facing another possibility. I sighed. What else? Emma opened a notebook filled with handwritten notes. I've been collecting everything. She pointed at one page. Several overseas accounts appeared 2 years after your conviction. I studied the information. They weren't mentioned during my trial. They didn't exist yet. Who controls them? We don't know. I looked up. Keep digging. She smiled. I never stopped. Before leaving, she reached across the table. I made you a promise. I remember, and I'm keeping it. After she left, I found Daniel waiting in the yard. You have that look. What look? The one that says your mind is racing. I handed him the notes. He studied them carefully. What do you think? I think lies become expensive. I don't understand. Every lie needs another lie to protect it. And eventually, the liar forgets which story is true. His word stayed with me. Several weeks later, another letter arrived from Emma. This one contained newspaper clippings. The headline caught my attention immediately. Hayes Technologies faces unexpected losses. I read every word. Ryan blamed aggressive competition. Investors accepted the explanation, but something felt wrong. At the bottom of the page, Emma had written a single sentence. Asterisk, someone inside is stealing. Asterisk, days later another letter arrived. Asterisk, I met Michael Hayes. Asterisk, I read faster. Victoria's father had quietly invited Emma to his office. According to Emma, he looked exhausted. She described their conversation. I know who you are, Michael had told her. I'm Ethan's sister. Yes. Why did you ask me here? Because something isn't right. Emma wrote that Michael had lowered his voice before continuing. Ryan keeps approving financial decisions without informing the board. Have you confronted him? He always has an explanation. And Victoria? She trusts him. I stopped reading for a moment. That sentence hurt more than I expected. Emma continued describing the meeting. I asked Mr. Hayes if he believed Ethan was guilty. What did he say? He stayed silent for a long time. Finally, he answered, I honestly don't know anymore. That single sentence gave me hope. Someone inside the company was finally asking questions. The following month, Daniel and I were reading in the library when a guard called my name. Carter. Mail. Inside the envelope was another letter. Emma's handwriting looked rushed. Asterisk, Detective Olivia reopened part of the investigation. Asterisk, my hands froze. I kept reading. A bank employee had reported suspicious transfers connected to accounts created after my conviction. Olivia had requested old financial records again. Emma wrote, asterisk, she isn't saying you're innocent yet, but she's asking questions nobody asked before. Asterisk, I folded the letter carefully. Daniel watched me. Progress. Maybe. Never celebrate too early. I know. He closed his book. Tell me something. What? If you're proven innocent tomorrow, what happens next? I expose Ryan. And after that, I rebuild my life. And Victoria? Her name hung heavily between us. I don't know. You still love her. I love the woman she used to be. That's not an answer. No, it isn't. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept remembering the woman who once held my hand during late-night business meetings. The woman who believed every dream I shared. Then I remember the courtroom. Asterisk, I don't anymore. Asterisk, the memories still hurt. Weeks later, Daniel found me staring through the prison fence. You've been standing here for 20 minutes. I've been thinking, dangerous habit. I smiled. I finally understand something. What is it? I spent years imagining revenge. And now, I don't want revenge through violence. What do you want? I looked toward the distant horizon beyond the prison walls. I want the truth. Daniel waited. I continued. I want every lie to collapse under its own weight. He nodded slowly. That's justice, not revenge. Real justice doesn't need anger. For the first time in years, I believed him. I wasn't waiting for Ryan to suffer. I wasn't waiting for Victoria to cry. I was waiting for the truth, because the truth had one advantage that lies never possessed. It never stayed buried forever. The morning began like every other morning in prison. A whistle, heavy footsteps, steel doors opening one by one. I folded my blanket and waited for another ordinary day. Instead, a guard stopped outside my cell. Carter. I stood. Yes. Bring your things. My stomach tightened. Why? You have a court hearing. Daniel looked up from his bed. He smiled faintly. I think today is different. I hope you're right. Before leaving, I shook his hand. I owe you everything. He squeezed my shoulder. No, I do. You owe me one thing. What? When you leave this place, don't let prison follow you home. I'll try. Don't try. He smiled. Do it. Hours later, I sat inside the courtroom, wearing the same prison uniform that had become part of my identity. Detective Olivia stood on the witness stand. She looked different, older, more tired. The judge spoke first. "Detective Reed, explain why this case has been reopened." She took a slow breath. "Our department uncovered evidence that several digital financial records presented during Mr. Carter's original trial had been altered." The courtroom became silent. The prosecutor frowned. "Altered by whom?" "We're still investigating." My attorney asked, "Can you confirm those records should never have been presented as authentic evidence?" "Yes." My heartbeat grew louder. The judge adjusted his glasses. "Are you saying this court may have convicted an innocent man?" Olivia lowered her head. "Yes, Your Honor." Those 3 words changed everything. The hearing lasted several more hours. Experts explained missing files. Computer specialists described manipulated timestamps. Hidden transactions appeared that had never existed during my trial. Finally, the judge looked toward me. "Mr. Carter." I stood. "In light of the newly discovered evidence, this court overturns your conviction pending further investigation." I could barely breathe. "You are to be released immediately." For several seconds, I couldn't move. A guard gently touched my arm. "You're free." Free. The word felt unfamiliar. Back at the prison, I packed everything I owned into one small bag. A few books, some letters from Emma, a family photograph. Nothing else. Daniel waited beside the exit. So, you made it. Because of you." He smiled. "No, because you refused to become the man prison wanted you to be." I hugged him. "Thank you. Remember, I know. The truth won." I nodded. "And now it's your turn to live." The prison gate slowly opened. Sunlight hit my face. For a moment, I closed my eyes. The air smelled different. Freedom had its own scent. The moment I stepped outside, someone shouted my name. "Ethan!" Emma ran toward me. She threw her arms around me so tightly that I almost dropped my bag. "You came home." I hugged her back. "You never gave up." "I promise." "I know." We both laughed through tears. Then cameras surrounded us. Reporters rushed forward. "Ethan, how does freedom feel? Do you blame your wife? Will you sue Hayes Technologies? Do you want revenge?" Microphones surrounded my face. I raised one hand. "I have nothing to say today." "Did Victoria frame you?" "I'm going home." "Do you forgive her?" I looked at the cameras. Today isn't about revenge. Then Emma gently pulled me toward the waiting car. As we drove away, I watched the prison disappear in the rearview mirror. I never looked back again. Across the city, Victoria sat inside her office, watching the breaking news on television. The screen showed me leaving prison beside Emma. One employee whispered, "He's finally free." Another answered, "Everything is changing." According to Emma later, Victoria didn't speak. She simply stared at the television. The reporter announced, "Ethan Carter has officially been released after new evidence revealed serious flaws in his conviction." Emma told me Victoria's face turned completely pale. For the first time in years, she saw me again, not as a criminal, not as a memory, as the man whose life had been stolen. That evening my phone rang. Unknown number. I ignored it. It rang again. Then again. Emma glanced at the screen. "It's Victoria." I quietly placed the phone face down. "I'm not ready. It might be important." "So is my piece." The calls continued for 3 days. Voicemails, messages, apologies I refused to hear. Finally, Emma asked, "Will you ever answer?" "Maybe." "When?" "When hearing her voice doesn't reopen old wounds." She nodded. "I understand." A week later, I left the city. No interviews, no lawsuits, no public speeches. I rented a small apartment several hours away where nobody recognized my face. For the first time in years, I walked through parks without guards watching me. I bought groceries, made coffee, read books by an open window. Simple things suddenly felt extraordinary. One afternoon, I stopped at a small business conference. I almost turned around before entering. Instead, I sat quietly in the back. A young man walked onto stage. My name is Noah Grant. He smiled confidently. I have an idea. His presentation wasn't perfect, but his passion reminded me of someone. It reminded me of Victoria years before success changed everything. After the event ended, Noah approached me. Excuse me. I looked up. You asked the smartest question during my presentation. I laughed. Old habit. You understand business? A little. He smiled. I could use advice. I don't know. Coffee. I hesitated, then nodded. Over coffee, he spread financial papers across the table. I built the product. He sighed. But I don't understand investors. I studied his numbers. You aren't charging enough. His eyes widened. Really? And your expansion plan is backwards. He leaned forward. How do you know all this? I smiled faintly. I've made enough mistakes to recognize them. For the next several hours, we talked about business leadership and building trust. Not once did he ask about my past. Not once did he search my name online. He simply listened. As we stood to leave, Noah smiled. I think we made a good team. I looked at the sunset outside the cafe window. For years, my life had been defined by prison, by betrayal, by loss. For the first time since walking through those prison gates, I realized something. Maybe my future wasn't waiting behind me. Maybe it had been quietly waiting ahead all along. 3 months after leaving prison, my life looked nothing like it once had. Every morning, Noah and I unlocked the door to our small office before sunrise. He grinned as he placed 2 cups of coffee on my desk. Ready to build something impossible? I smiled. I've already survived the impossible. He laughed. Fair point. Our company was still small, but every decision mattered. Unlike my old life, nobody knew my history. To Noah, I wasn't a man who had spent years in prison. I was simply Ethan. One afternoon, he walked into my office, holding a stack of contracts. I don't understand why investors suddenly trust us. I looked over the documents. They don't trust luck. They trust results. So we're doing something right? We're doing many things right. He smiled proudly. I knew asking you for coffee was the best decision I ever made. I laughed, and I almost said no. Our client list kept growing. Every successful deal reminded me that prison had never stolen my knowledge. It had only delayed my future. That evening, Emma called. Ethan, you sound excited. I am. What happened? I met someone. I raised an eyebrow. Should I be worried? She laughed. Not like that. Then explain. Her name is Sophia Bennett. Who's Sophia? An investigative journalist. I sat up straighter. What does she want? She has been investigating Hayes Technologies for months. My heartbeat quickened. Why? She found financial records that don't make sense. When can I meet her? Soon. The following afternoon, Emma introduced us at a quiet cafe. Sophia extended her hand. It's good to finally meet you. You already know who I am? I know enough. She opened a folder. I don't believe your conviction happened by accident. I stayed silent. She continued. I've followed money trails for years. She pushed several documents toward me. These accounts were opened after your arrest. I studied the pages. Large transfers. Offshore companies. Unknown signatures. Who owns them? We're getting closer. Emma smiled. I told you she was good. Sophia nodded. I also discovered something interesting. What? Every account connects to someone inside Hayes Technologies. I looked at her. Ryan. She smiled slightly. You reached the same conclusion. A few days later, Emma called again. I met Michael Hayes. Victoria's father? Yes. What happened? He asked to see me privately. I leaned forward. What did he say? He looked exhausted. Emma paused. He told me he couldn't ignore what he had been seeing anymore. What was he seeing? Ryan approving secret financial decisions. Without permission? Without informing the board. I closed my eyes. It finally caught up with him. Emma continued. Michael gave us old company records. My eyes widened. He actually helped? Yes. Why? He said one sentence I'll never forget. What was it? Emma repeated his words slowly. Asterisk. If Ethan is innocent, I've been silent for far too long. Asterisk. For the first time in years, I felt someone from Victoria's family standing beside me. Later that week, Sophia spread all the records across a conference table. She pointed to one document after another. Look here. I studied the files. Ryan approved this payment. Exactly. She pointed again. This transfer disappeared from the official reports. And this signature? Forged. Emma looked amazed. How did nobody notice? Sophia sighed, because everyone trusted the wrong person. Meanwhile, across the city, Victoria finally confronted Ryan. Emma learned about the meeting from one of Michael's former assistants. According to him, Victoria walked into Ryan's office holding several financial reports. She asked, "Explain these accounts." Ryan barely looked surprised. "They're routine. They weren't approved. I handled them." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you were busy." Emma told me Victoria refused to back down. There are millions missing. Ryan calmly folded his hands. "You're asking the wrong questions." "What does that mean?" "It means Ethan is still manipulating you." Even hearing those words made my blood boil. Emma continued telling me everything she had learned. Victoria reportedly frowned. "He's been out of prison for only a few months." Ryan shrugged. He had years to prepare. From prison? He planned this before his arrest. Emma shook her head while repeating the conversation. For the first time, she didn't believe him immediately. I slowly smiled. "What changed?" She hesitated. That tiny hesitation meant more than Ryan could imagine. Later that evening, Sophia called me. "I have another update." "I'm listening." "Victoria requested internal audits." "Really?" "Yes." So she's finally asking questions. Looks that way. After hanging up, I stood beside my apartment window, watching the rain. For years, I had dreamed about confronting Victoria. Now I wasn't sure I wanted to. The truth was already walking toward her. She simply couldn't outrun it anymore. The next morning, Emma visited. I heard something else. "What?" "Victoria spent hours looking through old family photographs." I stayed quiet. Emma continued softly. "Wedding pictures." I closed my eyes. "Photos from your honeymoon." My chest tightened. "Pictures from the first office you built together." I looked away. "What happened?" Emma sighed. She started crying. Neither of us spoke for several seconds. Finally, Emma whispered. She kept asking herself why she ignored every warning sign. I slowly sat down. I didn't celebrate. I didn't smile. There was nothing joyful about watching someone realize they had destroyed the person who loved them most. That night, Noah noticed I looked distracted. "You okay?" I nodded. The past is catching up with itself. He smiled without understanding. Then maybe the future finally has a chance. For the first time, I believed he might be right. The lies that had buried me for years were beginning to crack, and once the first crack appeared, the entire wall was only a matter of time from collapsing. I woke up to my phone ringing before sunrise. At first, I ignored it. Then it rang again, and again. Finally, Noah walked into my office holding his phone. "Ethan." I looked up. "What happened?" He turned the screen toward me. The headline covered the entire page. "Investigation reveals massive fraud inside Hayes Technologies." For several seconds, I couldn't speak. Noah sat down. Sophia published everything. I opened the article. Every account, every transfer, every hidden agreement. Ryan's entire plan was exposed. Sophia had connected every piece of evidence together. I slowly whispered, "It's finally happening." Noah watched my expression. "Are you happy?" I stared at the screen. I thought I would be. But I don't feel what I expected. Noah nodded, because this isn't just about winning. I closed the article. People lost years of their lives because of his lies. Within hours, Hayes Technologies became the biggest story in the country. News channels showed investors demanding answers. Former employees described strange decisions made behind closed doors. The company that once represented success was now surrounded by questions. My phone kept receiving messages. Some were from strangers. Some were from old business contacts. Others were from reporters. I ignored all of them. I had spent years fighting to be heard. Now everyone suddenly wanted my story, but I wasn't ready to give it. That afternoon, Emma called. "Ethan, what's happening? Everything is falling apart." "Explain." "The board members called an emergency meeting." "About Ryan?" "About everyone." I stayed quiet. Emma continued. "They're asking why Victoria never verified the evidence before your trial." My chest tightened. "How is she responding?" "I don't know." Later that evening, Sophia called. Her voice sounded exhausted. "We did it." "You expose him." "We expose the truth." I smiled slightly. "What's next?" "Law enforcement is investigating." "Will Ryan be arrested?" "If he tries to run, yes." The next morning, Sophia sent me a message. Ryan attempted to leave the country. I immediately called her. "What happened?" "Detective Olivia stopped him." I sat down. "She arrested him?" "Yes." I remembered Olivia standing in court years earlier, the detective who unknowingly helped send me away. Now she was the person bringing my betrayer to justice. A strange feeling filled me. Not happiness. Something closer to closure. Meanwhile, Ryan sat inside an interrogation room. According to Sophia, he refused to accept responsibility. Detective Olivia placed documents across the table. "These accounts belong to you." Ryan shook his head. "No. These transfers were approved using your authorization. Someone copied my information. You created these companies." "False." Olivia looked at him calmly. "You have an explanation for everything." Ryan smiled. "Because I didn't do anything." She pushed another file forward. "What about this?" His expression changed. "What is that?" "Security footage." Silence. "The same footage showing you accessing confidential company files." Ryan looked away. "I want my lawyer." Olivia closed the folder. "You can have one." She stood. "But the evidence will still be here." For the first time, Ryan had no answer. A few days later, Victoria appeared on live television. I watched from my apartment with Noah and Emma. The reporter asked, "Mrs. Hayes, did you falsely accuse your husband?" Victoria looked down. Her voice shook. "I made a terrible mistake." The room became silent. She continued, "I trusted evidence without questioning where it came from." Emma looked at me. I said nothing. Victoria continued, "I destroyed the life of someone who trusted me completely." The reporter asked, "Do you believe Ethan Carter was innocent?" Victoria closed her eyes. "Yes." One word. The same woman who once doubted me was finally saying the truth. But years had already passed. The damage was already done. That evening, another headline appeared. Hayes Technologies loses billions as shareholders remove Victoria Hayes as CEO. Noah looked at me. "They removed her." I nodded. "She lost everything." "How do you feel?" I looked at the screen showing Victoria leaving the company building. "I don't know. After everything she did." I took a deep breath. I expected anger. But all I see is someone who made the worst mistake of her life. Noah was quiet. "That's a strange reaction." "Daniel taught me something." "Who is Daniel?" "The man who helped me survive prison." "What did he teach you?" I looked out the window. "That suffering can change you." I remembered Daniel's voice. Asterisk, hate is expensive. Asterisk, asterisk, don't let prison follow you home. Asterisk, I realized he was right. For years, I imagined this moment. Ryan exposed, Victoria defeated, my enemies destroyed. But standing there, watching everything collapse, I didn't feel like a winner. I felt tired. That night Emma visited me. "You okay?" I nodded. "I think so." "You don't look happy." "I'm not." She looked surprised. "Why?" "Because my victory came from watching people destroy themselves." Emma sat beside me. "But they hurt you." "I know. And they deserve consequences." "Yes." "Then why do you feel bad?" I looked at my hands. "Because I lost years too." The room became quiet. Finally, Emma smiled sadly. "You really changed." "Maybe." "No." She shook her head. "You did." I remember the man who entered prison, angry, broken, ready to destroy anyone responsible. That man was gone. The next morning, I received a message from Daniel. I saw the news. I smiled and replied, "You were right." A minute later, he answered, "About what?" I typed slowly. "Real victory isn't watching others fall." His response came quickly. "Then what is it?" I looked around my office. At the life I had rebuilt. At the future I had created. Then I wrote, "Staying human after everything tried to change me." For the first time in years, I felt free. Not because Ryan was defeated. Not because Victoria regretted her choice. But because their actions no longer control my heart. I didn't expect to see Victoria again. Not after everything. Not after the trial. Not after the years I spent wondering how the woman I loved could watch me lose my freedom. But one evening, my phone rang. I looked at the screen. Her name appeared. For a moment, I just stared. No one noticed my expression. "Who is it?" I turned the phone over. Someone from my past. He understood immediately. "Victoria." I nodded. "Are you going to answer?" I thought about it. The old Ethan would have answered instantly. The old Ethan would have searched for any sign that she still cared. But I wasn't that person anymore. "I don't know." The phone stopped ringing. A few minutes later, a message appeared. "Please meet me once. I need to talk to you. Asterisk, asterisk." I read it several times. Then I replied, "Where?" Her answer came quickly. "The garden behind the old Hayes estate. The same garden. The place where we once sat together before success changed everything. The place where we planned our future." When I arrived, Victoria was already there. She looked different. Not like the powerful CEO from years ago. Not like the woman whose face appeared on magazine covers. She looked tired. Human. She stood when she saw me. "Ethan." I stopped several feet away. "Victoria." The silence between us felt heavier than any argument. She looked down. "I didn't know if you would come." "Neither did I." A painful smile crossed her face. "You always were honest." "I learned to be." She took a deep breath. "I owe you an apology." I said nothing. I know words can't fix what I did. "No." Her eyes filled with tears. "I know." She looked around the garden. "Do you remember this place?" "Yes." "We sat right there." She pointed toward an old bench. "You told me we would build a life together." "We did." She lowered her head. "Then I destroyed it." I stayed quiet. She wiped her tears. "I was afraid." I frowned slightly. "Afraid of what?" "Losing everything." "You already had everything." "I know." Her voice broke. But I was so focused on protecting my company that I stopped seeing the person who protected me. I looked away. "Victoria." "No, please." She stepped closer. "Let me finish." I allowed her. "I saw evidence against you. You saw what Ryan wanted you to see." "I know." Her tears fell. "That's what hurts the most." She looked directly at me. "I didn't investigate. You didn't trust me." "I know." Her voice became smaller. I chose the easiest answer. The word stayed between us. The easiest answer was believing you betrayed me. I looked at her, and the hardest answer was accepting that you betrayed me. She closed her eyes. "I deserve that." For a moment, I remembered everything. Our first meeting. Our first apartment. The nights we stayed awake planning her company. The promises. The laughter. Then I remember the courtroom. The prison gates. The years I couldn't get back. Victoria whispered, "I miss you." I didn't answer. "I miss us. I miss who we were." Her expression changed. "Is there no chance?" I looked at her. "A chance for what?" "To start again." I took a slow breath. "Victoria, I know I don't deserve forgiveness." "No." She looked surprised. I continued, "But forgiveness and starting over are different things." She looked down. "I thought you hated me." "I did." Her eyes lifted. "For a long time." "What changed?" "Prison changed me." She nodded sadly. "I heard. I spent years angry." "You had every right." "Maybe." I looked toward the trees. But anger kept me trapped even after I left. She whispered, "So you forgive me?" I was silent. Then I answered, "Yes." Her eyes filled with hope. But I continued, "Not because what you did was okay." Her hope faded slightly. "I forgive you because I don't want to carry that pain anymore." She nodded slowly. "I understand." "No." I looked at her. "I don't think you do." She became quiet. "Prison took 8 years for me." Tears rolled down her face. "I know." "No." My voice became heavier. "You don't." I stepped closer. 8 years of birthdays. 8 years of family moments. 8 years of watching life continue while I stood still. She covered her mouth. "I can't change that. That's why we can't go back." She looked broken. "Is there really nothing I can do?" I shook my head. "Some things break differently." "What does that mean?" "It means you can repair damage." I paused. "But sometimes the shape is never the same again." The garden became silent. Finally, she whispered, "I loved you." I looked at her. "I know." "I still do." "I believe you." That surprised her. "You do?" "Yes." "Then why?" "Because love isn't always enough." She looked away. "You were the person who knew me best. And you were the person who hurt me most." She closed her eyes. "I'll regret this forever." "I know." I turned around. "Ethan." I stopped. "Will you ever forgive me completely?" I looked back. I already did. "Then why are you leaving?" "Because forgiveness doesn't mean I have to return to the place where I was broken." Her face fell. I walked away slowly. Every step felt heavy, but it also felt peaceful. Behind me, Victoria stayed in the garden alone, the same garden where we once planned forever. Now it only held the memory of what we lost. As I reached my car, I looked at the sky. For years, I thought justice would be seeing Victoria suffer. I was wrong. The real victory was walking away without hatred. She had lost my trust, and that was something no apology could ever bring back. 6 months after the truth came out, my life finally felt peaceful. Not perfect, not like the life I lost, but peaceful. Every morning, I walked into my office and saw something I never thought I would have again: a future. Noah entered carrying a stack of papers. "You're here early." I looked up. "So are you." He smiled. "I own half this company. I have to pretend I'm responsible." I laughed. "That's a dangerous habit." He placed the papers on my desk. "Our newest project." I looked through the documents. "This is bigger than anything we've done before." "Exactly." I smiled. "You aren't afraid?" He shook his head. "I learn from you." "About business?" "No." He sat down. "About surviving." I became quiet. Those words still felt strange. People saw me as someone who overcame everything. But I still remember the nights when I thought I would never escape prison. The nights when I questioned my own worth. Noah continued, "You know what people say about you?" I raised an eyebrow. "What?" "That you give broken companies a second chance." I smiled. "I don't fix companies." "What do you do?" "I help people who still have something worth saving." Noah nodded. "That's why people trust you." Trust. That word once meant everything. Then it became the thing that hurt me most. Now I understood something different. Trust wasn't about never being betrayed. It was about knowing you could survive if someone did. That afternoon, Emma visited my office. She looked happier than she had in years. I noticed immediately. "You look different." She smiled. "Different good." "Very good." She sat across from me. I finally feel like I can breathe. I knew exactly what she meant. For years, she carried my pain like it was her own. You don't have to search for answers anymore. "I know." She looked around my office. "I'm proud of you." I smiled. "You were the first person who believed me." And I was right. I laughed. "Yes, you were." She became quiet. "Do you ever think about what happened?" "Sometimes." "Do you regret not getting revenge?" I looked out the window. "No." "Really?" "No." I thought about Ryan, the man who destroyed my life, the man who lost everything because of his own choices. He made his decisions. Emma nodded. And you made yours. Exactly. A few days later, I received an invitation. It was from Judge William Foster. I almost ignored it, but something told me to go. When I entered the courtroom, it looked exactly like the place where my life had fallen apart years before. The judge stood when he saw me. Mr. Carter, Your Honor. He looked older, more serious. I ask you here because there is something I need to say publicly. I waited. He turned toward the people gathered inside. Years ago, this court made a grave mistake. The room became silent. Evidence that should have been questioned was accepted. He looked at me, and an innocent man lost years of his life. My throat tightened. I cannot return those years. He lowered his head, but I can acknowledge the truth. For the first time, the world heard what I had always known. I was innocent. After the hearing, Detective Olivia approached me. You finally got the apology you deserved. I smiled slightly. An apology doesn't get back time. No. She looked thoughtful. But sometimes the truth matters. I nodded. Thank you. She looked surprised. For what? For finally looking again. She smiled. I should have looked harder the first time. We were all different people back then. Are you? I looked toward the courthouse doors. Yes. Months later, I heard about Victoria. She had sold Hayes Technologies to new owners. The company continued under different leadership. Victoria herself disappeared from the spotlight. Instead of rebuilding her reputation, she spent her time helping organizations that supported people wrongly accused of crimes. When Michael visited me, he told me about her. She works harder than anyone now. I nodded. Good. He looked at me carefully. Do you hate her? I shook my head. No. After everything, I chose peace. Michael smiled sadly. You became a better man than all of us. I disagreed. No. I looked around my office. I just became a man I should have been. That evening, I stayed late. Everyone had gone home. I stood near the window, watching the sunset. My reflection stared back at me. For years, I hated that man. The man who trusted too easily. The man who couldn't protect himself. The man who lost everything. But now I understood. That man wasn't weak. He was simply unfinished. The prison didn't end my story. It changed it. The betrayal didn't destroy me. It revealed me. The pain didn't disappear. I learned how to carry it. My phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. How's life outside? I smiled. I replied, better than I imagined. His response came quickly. Did you find revenge? I looked around my office. At the company I built. At the people who believed in me. At the life I created. Then I typed, no. A moment later, I found myself. I turned off the lights and walked toward the door. Outside, the city was glowing. Years ago, I walked out of prison carrying one small bag and a heart full of pain. Today, I walked out carrying something much stronger. Hope. The world didn't save me. The court didn't save me. The people who betrayed me didn't save me. I saved myself. And that was the freedom nobody could ever take away.